But 6 months later, you know, it was clear that it was not a cure because the tumor had grown 3 times, even though in that time, along with other things like ozone treatment, ozone might be illegal in this state, but it's legal in New York. It's only legal in 11 states in America. Sweat therapy, hyperbaric chamber, you know, where Michael Jackson slept in. All those things. I did 11 different things that I enumerate in Diary of a Gratis Cancer Warrior. And none of them are a cure, but they did optimize my condition. So I believe that I'm still here with you because of supplementing all the mainstream stuff I did with the alternative treatments. So that's how I came to that viewpoint, that position. And I believe that it's really a transformation that you know, you have to make a decision. You want to live, and you want a certain quality of life. And I was tired of losing my quality of life. I was tired of losing organ after organ after organ. You know, and I wanted to draw the line in the sand. You know, and subsequently I've lost more organs. You know, but during that time, I knew I had 3 objectives to do. One was to cement my musical legacy. 2 was to establish a cutting-edge revolutionary organization, which I have, called Scientific Soul Sessions in New York. And 3 was to make sure that the love of my life was going to be taken care of for the rest of her life. So I did all those things, knowing that there was going to be an end coming sooner or later. So I was driven to just optimize myself in that last period of time, whatever that's going to be for myself. And I still believe that. To drive myself at the optimum, be optimized for whatever happens next. And, you know, I thought the last time was going to be the last time. So I changed my will, I took care of all the things I had to do. But it wasn't the last time. So, you know, you just continue to fight on, you know, with complete openness to transformation. Because, you know, I actually tell people, and then they're very perplexed by this, that the cancer war was a gift to me. You know, it taught me so many things. It changed me philosophically and spiritually and creatively. And so it was actually a great gift. I finally was able to get rid of ego, you know, and a whole bunch of other things that were just baggage. And so, yeah, major physical challenges and losses, but tremendous philosophical, spiritual, creative gains that could not have happened any other way to have gone through this war, through this process. Ken?
Fred, what advice would you give to young artists and musicians coming up trying to live a creative life in spite of all the obstacles they face in this capitalist society? Can you repeat the question?
Kenny's question is what advice I would give to young artists or any artists trying to maintain a creative and develop a creative life in this capitalist quagmire. And I would say simply make your art as powerful, like if you were Joshua playing that horn to bring down the walls of Jericho. That's what you should be doing with your art. Bringing down the walls of Jericho. It should be that kind of force. And don't settle for anything less than that kind of force. You know, and the only obstacle in your way is your own imagination in terms of solving all these things. My final goal on this planet is actually to create a new economic infrastructure for performing arts. And I've accomplished that for myself. But those lessons are falling for 99.9% of the artists on deaf ears because they're so entrenched in the matrix. You have to want to bring that matrix down, and then you can kind of see around the corner. So I've been able to do it for myself. You know, and I actually have some private students that I'm teaching that to, and I'm very optimistic that they're going to acquire the visibility as well. But you have to get rid of ego. You have to get rid of valorization and anointment by the gatekeepers. And the whole thing is that you have to create what I call, well actually, my friend Peggy Choi calls a gateless gate. You still need standards, you still need integrity, you still need excellence, you know, but they're not going to be based on the criteria of quote-unquote making it. They're going to be other criteria, like bringing down walls of Jericho and so forth. Now, I say that metaphorically, but that's the kind of power that we need to have internally as artists, so we don't get caught in the okie-doke, which 99.9% of people are doing and spinning their wheels. They're basically looking for two ways, and there's the non-profit industrial complex, and then there's the commercial world. They're looking to become stars in either one of them. But those are only a handful of slots in those areas. So, you know, if you're clear about that and you're here to create your own infrastructure, you don't have to participate in any of that. You don't have to set your criteria for that. So that's why I need a job. I've never had a job my whole life. Last time I had a job, I was a construction worker. You know, and that was when I was 21 and 22. But I've never had a job my whole life. That doesn't mean you don't have allies. Allies are very, very important. But you know, you don't rely upon that system for your valorization, or really for your training or anything. You know, autodidacticism, teaching yourself, self-learning, I think is the primary way to go. And in fact, I'm really not very, very supportive of these big educational institutions. Now that I've been teaching privately, I feel like a good teacher like Richard Hamasaki should only have 1 to 3 students, and maybe on the high side 6. And in that sense of learning, then you can really teach and learn. But this institutional model, classrooms, etc., I don't really think that it gets that far. So I think, you know, it's really in the indigenous-centric model of an elder really participating in the development of someone so that they can reach that, pass through the rites of passage to get to what they need to get to. Yes, sir.
Since you seem to be, by nature, an iconoclast, I was wondering, what was your resistance to exploring alternative therapies from the beginning? And if a person was diagnosed with cancer, came to you and asked for your advice, would you suggest to them that they resist the protocols of the allopathic medical profession and go alternative from the beginning?
My position as a warrior is by any means necessary, because we're all different. We all have different tipping points. So my thing is whatever works. Now my resistance came from carrying a lot of baggage, in the sense that, you know, I had my sister, who was a very prominent doctor, talking in one of my ears very, very heavily. So first time around, she wanted me to buy on the black market Avastin, which is a super powerful chemo drug. I think for 20 treatments, it's about $250,000. She wanted me to buy that on the black market because it was not available, because it had not passed the FDA clinical trials for stage 3B colon cancer. And for stage 4, why it's considered a miracle drug is because on the average it prolongs life a little over 6 months. So that's why it's considered miraculous. But I'm glad I didn't, because the clinical trials have borne out that it actually has no benefits for stage 3 colorectal cancer, and a mountain of bad side effects, including perforated bowel, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I don't give advice in that regard. All I can do is share my journey and my story and tell you that you have to fight like hell and seek any means necessary. But all along the way, you need to be in optimum fighting condition, both physically and spiritually. And so the raw extreme will help you do that. It's not the only thing, but it will really, really help. For example, if you're going to battle or war against cancer and you're obese, you you have hypertension, you have diabetes, you have heart disease, you're not going to fare that well. In fact, most people die with those who have those kinds of conditions on the operating table. Because they're not in any condition to stand that kind of draconic treatment. So my thing is, if you're going to go that way, then be in the best fighting shape that you can be in. You know, I don't make a claim, and no one, I don't think anyone should make a claim it's going to be a cure. But it'll certainly get you in the best tip-top condition to go through as much as you have to go through. So that's really my position, is what can you do to optimize yourself? Also psychologically, too. Drop all the baggage. If you're in a social environment with family or friends that are leeches, you know, sucking you dry, stressing you out, cut them. You know, because you have to have a singular focus. You're in a war, and the stakes are literally your life. And you're there to win. But we don't always know we're going to win. You know, there's no crystal ball on that level. So what we got to do is increase our chances of winning all the time. And so that's why, you know, even if you look at the mainstream literature, like I was reading the Honolulu Star newspaper yesterday, they had 3 articles. One on the dangers of animal consumption of meats. What was the other one? On sugar drinks. And the third one was on vitamins. How water-insoluble vitamins actually increase the possibilities of these far more dangerous things like cancer. So, you know, that's them talking. So even on their end, like for example, the American Cancer Society, which is a fairly conservative organization, says that in 50 years, 1 out of 2 American men will get cancer, and 1 out of 3 American women will get cancer in 50 years. That's a conservative organization giving those kinds of numbers. So, if you know this ahead of time, then you can prepare for it, you know. But, you know, you're either going to be either bull's hair in the crosshairs of carcinogens, or you're going to do collateral damage. What was I? I was a combination of both. I precisely know what gave me cancer. Too much high temperature cooked food, because it was comfort food, even though I was in great shape. But basically grilled, barbecued, broiled foods, deep fried, because those are my comfort foods. And stress, competition, and ego. Trying to do what I do in this toxic music business for 35 years. So I gave myself that. You know, and collateral damage, you know, I think collateral damage comes from inheriting some genes from my father. My father had a polyp since 1988 every single year in his colonoscopies. So I had that kind of stuff. And so it's a mixture of the two, but pretty much, you know, I know one of the things that one has to do, and there's a lot of debate, but I don't blame myself, but you have to do some soul searching, because it can be a gift, an opportunity to change. Because whenever I, you know, people, because of my blog and everything, people from all around the world were calling me and emailing me, very enthusiastically responding to it. And I would never engage myself in a discussion with anyone whose foremost consideration was, how do I get back to the life that I had? I said, you can't go back. That's a carcinogenic life. Look as an opportunity to go forward and to change. But if they didn't, then I would just hang up the phone or stop the email. That's not what I'm interested in. So, you know, if your thing is to go back to whatever that idyllic existence or better, you know, good existence you thought you had, rethink that, because there's something inherently carcinogenic about it. Even if you're primarily collateral damage. Something in the balance between your biochemical makeup and environment worked. You know, collaborated, if you will. detoxify you.
You talk about a creative change that you had.
What?
You talk about a creative change that you had.
Creative change.
So I want to know if there are any musical influences or artistic influences that you are more open to after you got there.
Are there any more artistic or musical changes I'm more open to?
After you.
Let me put it this way. The musical changes were the following: musical and non-musical, or extra musical. One, in the elimination of ego came the elimination of a career. That liberated me to looking at making music in the terms of the mission that I set for myself from that point forward, the new Fred Ho, the one that was born on August 5th, 2006. And that was to do the music and the politics that no one else can or will do. So someone else can do it, I'm not interested. So I was going to work on the things that no one else wanted to do or could do. So there are many. For example, in the diatonic system, which is the white notes and the black notes on the piano, 12 tones in the Western pitch system, my thing was to orchestrate for 18 instruments a system of pitches that was based on 18 intervals, not 12. I don't want to get too elaborate on what that means, but you listen to my big band recordings, there are a lot of examples of that. What are the voicings? Well, they're not like anything you've heard before. They're not voicings that you're going to hear at Berklee College of Music in the arranging schools, or any of the, for that matter, anyone's work. On the baritone saxophone, it was going beyond the fifth octave, and also a range of other techniques of being able to play double tone, triple tone on Flight of the Bumblebee, which I admit I didn't do too well tonight, but I didn't practice a lot in the last few days. So, what was that second half of your question?
Artistic influences.
How did it open me to other artistic influences? Yeah, basically the only music that I'm interested in is quote unquote pre-modern music. Music of the shamans, music of matriarchal societies, music in which music is greater than simply art or recreation or entertainment, but a true spiritual healing force. So that's the most of the music that I'm interested in right now, is how to make music today with these industrial manufactured instruments into the kind of instruments that I encountered in South Turkey when I was walking on the beach and I met this virtuoso double reed player who took a reed from the marsh with a little knife, cut a few holes in it, and played one of the most brilliant a cappella solos I had. Then he handed me the flute after I applauded him heavily and I was just loving his music. He gave me the flute. I reached in my pocket to give him some money. And he said, "No, I won't accept money. Take it. You heard something. Take it." That's where I want to get to. That's when I'm interested in music. That's the kind of music that and the kind of artist that I want to be with. And I understand because I still have to function in this matrix. I still have to hire artists and so forth. So that's why I create this alternative paradigm, these alternative mechanisms and infrastructure. But for myself, I don't need it because I don't need a career. So for myself, I don't need it. But I have to function in ways so that I can still make projects happen. And so, I'm working on what I call manga operas. The use of the Japanese adult comic book form, but in staged performance and production. So I'm doing a lot of, I have an off-Broadway run next year in New York, The Deadly She-Wolf Assassin and Armageddon, in homage to the Lone Wolf and Cub samurai movies and comic books of the 70s. So I'm working on those kinds of things. Anyone else? Well, thank you very much. I'll be back at the table with Mele and thank you from the audience today, to Laurie O'Connor and her company, to the folks here at 39Hotel, Rick Hamasaki, Paul Lyons, Susan Franklin, but not to also everyone who helped make this event possible tonight. Thank you.
Performance. I'd like to interview people, but it's going to be too noisy. Maybe I'll come back later. We'll go out on the street now and where we started, so I can sign off. I can tell you where we've been. We've just been at 39Hotel at 39Hotel Street. We're going down the stairs. We're going back onto the sidewalk. Open. Where we started, and here we are on Hotel Street, historic Hotel Street. We were at a performance and lecture by Fred Ho, radical cancer warrior, said goodbye to capitalism. And this is the street now, Hotel Street. Next door is Bar 35. And I guess we'll sign off. This is exactly where we are. It's a great gig. Might come back later on. It's been a great, thanks for joining us. And talk to you later. I'm signing off from 39Hotel Street.